Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the final episode of our 3-star Clears Gauntlet series. Rift Clear series. Today, we will be going over the 7 remaining rifts that are within the Omega difficulty, and they can be a little bit interesting, including 2 different solo-style rifts that we will be looking at today. Now, the rifts that we're looking at, they're kind of in a weird order in terms of where they're located. Basically, it's going to be that top arrow off to the right-hand side of the screen, and then the 2 sections adjacent to it in the center that goes up on that leftward diagonal. Those are going to be the 7 that we're focusing on today, and one of them can be a little bit tricky to unlock or find, but we'll go over that in due time. So if you're enjoying this series, please feel free to leave a like on today's video. Don't forget to comment and let me know what your favorite rift was. And without further ado, let's go ahead and finish out the rifts in the Omega difficulty and conclude this series. So the first rift that we will be looking at is one of those solo rifts that I'd mentioned. It will be the level 66 Wings of the Wasp solo rift. And basically the way that this one works is we've got Magneto, the souped up version of Magneto with the Power Stone, and we've got to take him on and take him down using only Wasp as our team member. And this can be an interesting challenge in and of itself, as any of the solo rifts can tend to be. You do want to make sure that you are familiar with her abilities as well as, you know, how to dodge around a lot of these different attacks, because Magneto hits pretty hard and can be a nuisance if you're unaware of how to cope with him correctly. And the 3 things that you're really looking for here to get the full star clears is, first off, you've got to make sure that you get through it at least once. You also need to deal 550,000 damage or more with abilities, which is actually done very, very well with her Tiny Tornado and Wasp Sting combination, as you see there. That's a very high damage output ability, provided that you can line it up properly. And here we launch a couple of those Wasp Stings just into Magneto directly. And that gets us the clear in less than 3 minutes, which was that other clear condition that we were looking at. The second rift that we are going over today is the level 66 Countdown rift in the Wakanda Capital Gates section. And this one is another one of those styles that you don't typically see when it comes to these countdown style rifts, where we need to finish in 5 minutes and 40 seconds or less, but also have 1 minute and 30 seconds remaining on our timer as we seek to go through it. Honestly, as long as you have characters that you're familiar with how to use, you're not going to have too much trouble with this, though it is important to note that you should, where possible, get characters that have large area of effects or can draw their opponents in so you can attack into them more succinctly. At this point, we have a transition state, which I believe that the timer on the amount of time that you need to finish in is also paused, since you see that the countdown is paused during that mandatory cutscene. And as soon as we are over on this side of the apparatus and you see the counter restart, we'll want to go ahead and make our way across this treacherous path using Thanos Infinite, or really any character if you wish. Now, if you have characters that can fly, they might do very, very well in terms of getting across this in a quick and succinct manner and fashion. But what we're really looking to do here is make sure that we take on the radio control towers that are influencing the Panther statue. And Thanos had a little bit of some struggle with that using his heavy attack there, but we ended up getting it taken care of, which then will transition us into the final area, the final confrontation, in order to finish out this rift. And as you see, we've got another unskippable cutscene that the timer is paused on as well, so we will progress right on down to the final arena here, which is the confrontation against Claw. And if you've been around for a while, you know that Claw is one of my least favorite bosses in this game, just due to the way that his attacks and mechanics work. But he is a little bit more manageable in this type of a setting where we have an over-leveled team to really make sure that we're doing things as quickly and efficiently as possible. He does still cause a couple of troubles with his sonic repulsor attacks that go blasting around the arena, but with a couple of finalized shots here, we should be able to take him out completely as soon as he quits reverbing off of the walls. At this stage, he's completely staggered out, so we're going to go ahead and bring in Wolverine and just do his solo ability twice, that adamantium uppercut, and that's going to do it in for Claw and get us to the end there. And with the full 3 stars on the first run of it as well. Now, the next rift that we will be looking at is the level 70 boss wave rift, where we need to defeat Electro and 3 other bosses. And those bosses appear pretty succinctly, one after the other. We have Electro who spawns in, and he's pretty easy to manage because he does fall into that glass cannon category. He hits pretty hard, but he also has a very low health pool. As soon as you have Electro taken down, you'll be joined by Maximus, and he does lead in with a couple of heavier hitting attacks, though he follows the same glass cannon formula as Electro, if we're being completely honest here. And that is reflected in the fact that he goes down pretty quick once we hone in on him and are able to take him out and focus on him more directly. You'll see here that with one final set of our dash attack and a heavy attack combo, provided I don't get knocked out of it a couple of times, that is going to be enough to take Maximus down. And then we do have 2 more boss characters that will spawn in. That will be in the form of Elektra and Ronan, and they come in at the exact same time. Now, in order to get the full rewards here from this rift, you will need to get the clear in getting a score of 220,000 or more, which is pretty easily attainable as long as you are feeding into the opponents and doing so in a quick and easy manner. And then the second condition, in order to get that 3rd star, is going to be finishing in 6 minutes or less, which is very easily manageable as long as you have a decently high-level team. The 4th rift that we will be looking at is the level 71 countdown that takes place within Avengers Tower. And this can be a little bit interesting, but you can make your way through Avengers Tower pretty easily, and having characters that teleport are going to be your best friend in this type of a situation, as you just want to launch your way around as best you can. I do take the time to just lay into the different enemies that are spawning in just to make sure that we have enough time on our timer and we're not running too dry, but it's really not something that we're going to have to worry about really too much at all. In order to get the full clear here, we've got to make sure that we finish in less than 5 minutes, but also have 1 minute and 30 seconds or more remaining on the in-game timer. And that is managed a lot easier if you take the time to make sure that you're taking out the different grunt enemies that spawn in over the course of this progression. At this stage, I know that the final confrontation area is going to grant us a lot of time, so I'm not terribly concerned about taking on these different opponents that are within the halls here, but we do have one final section that we need to make sure that we're paying close attention to as we progress through, because there is a training room puzzle that we'll need to take on in order to get in there as well. And this is the easier of the 2 training room puzzles. It just has you snake back and forth within the hexagon grid there. But I do generally recommend trying to set up that gravity field in the center of the arena in order to stave off the attacks from the different opponents which are located around here. Otherwise, you're going to get dashed into, much like what we just saw there. But with our heavy attack there, or our enemy freezing attack, we are able to knock out the nuisances that are right there at the terminal, and we can go ahead and progress on to the final area, which is the living room quarters, which is the spot where the final confrontation will take place. And as soon as we are into this area, we'll get transitioned over into the actual section of the fight. And it's pretty standard. There's a couple of these bots that come in. If you're really crunched on time, you can focus on taking them down. Do keep in mind that defeating Venom, which is the end objective of this fight, will allot you some extra time onto your timer. It's generally 30 or 40 seconds or so. So as long as you are looking really well in that right, you should be able to take him down fairly easily. And with one final synergy attack there, we've got him taken down. And just as you see, an extra 40 seconds tacked onto our timer, which meets us and bumps us into that safe area for our clear condition. Now, this fifth rift that we're looking at is not one that is unlocked right off the get-go. You actually need to play through the ultimate difficulty story quest, or at least go to the nowhere section of the story quest and interact with the rift that is there. So there's a bit of some combat that goes on here, and as a reminder, this is not the rift itself that we're looking at, but rather what you need to do in order to unlock that rift and make it attainable for you. But we've got these outriders we need to take down, which will then transition us over into a conversation that we can have with Cosmo and an elevator that we can ride up, which will take us to the area that we need. Just got these last two outriders we need to take care of here, and I thought it was useful for you to see kind of what you need to expect with this fight when going into the area of unlocking that rift. And now that that door has been opened, we can zip out ahead of Cosmo. We don't have to wait for him. We don't have to let us lead him to the platform here, as long as we're familiar with where we're going. And just like that, we have the platform that transitions over, and the rift that we're looking for is on the left side of that entrance. You interact with it, you're given the objective, and that will transition you into that level 71 countdown rift, which takes place in Shadowland. This one has the 45-second countdown that starts. We also need to make sure that we are, like some of the previous ones we've seen, getting up to 1 minute and 30 seconds more on that timer by the close of the rift, as well as finishing in 3 minutes or less. And this is going to be fairly straightforward. I'm taking some extra time and caution to make sure that I'm layering my attacks into the different opponents present, and that will just assure that we are doing really well on time. This fight, as you might anticipate if you're familiar with the story quest, does culminate in us fighting Bullseye in his chamber there. And as soon as we have these opponents taken down, we'll go ahead and transition right into that arena to take them down. These opponents will get us the last little bits added to our timer that we're going to need. So we can now go into the artifact room and initiate that fight against Bullseye. And he spawns in, and it's really just him and a couple of extra goons running around. But Bullseye is one of those other glass cannon type characters, and as you already see, we've got him down to that threshold that activates the second part of this boss fight, and then the cutscene that initiates as soon as we get through that gate into the second area. From here, Mystique also shows up, so you'll need to take down both of them in order to finish out this fight. But Mystique, again, kind of falls into that glass cannon category, where she can be devastating if she hits you with the right attacks, but at the same time, she has a very shallow health pool and goes down very easily. You even see that she went down faster than Bullseye, mostly because Bullseye ran across to the other side of the room and didn't want to confront anyone. But with that final hit of the heavy attack there from Thanos Infinite, we've got what we need to finish out that rift as well. We're on to the sixth rift of today's video, and that is the other solo rift which I had mentioned. This is the level 72 scientific method starring Iron Man. And this one, it's kind of a joke as long as you're familiar with how Iron Man is meant to work. But MODOK definitely makes this fight a run for its money, to say the least. In order to get the full clear condition here, you need to finish in under 4 minutes while defeating 50 enemies, which does include MODOK in that total. And honestly, as long as you can avoid getting hit right in the face by the different attacks and lasers that MODOK's throwing around, you're going to do fine. I honestly find that using the repulsor array and that laser attack does very well with taking out the different aim soldiers here. And anytime MODOK starts whipping those lasers around the arena, you kind of want to just get as far away from him as humanly possible. At this stage, we've got him into his second phase, and this is the one that's drawn out a little bit more than some of the other fights, but I'm using some of these missiles to keep my distance wherever I can, especially when and if there are AIM soldiers that are hanging out around MODOK there. I thought that I could get some distance away from MODOK and avoid those lasers, as they do alter the way that they work in his second phase of the fight. But honestly, I think it's best to either fly up over those lasers, or if you're feeling particularly gutsy, you can roll around them as they come around the arena, as that is a viable strategy as well. Really, at this stage, it's just making sure that we're dodging around MODOK's heavier hitting attacks, and that we can also target any and all of the AIM soldiers that come into the arena and take them out as we reach our enemy's defeated threshold as well. Got a couple more missiles coming in here from MODOK that we'll need to dodge around, but at this phase, the repulsor array attack that we're doing from Iron Man takes out the AIM soldiers and the AIM grunts almost instantly, which is really nice. And you just really need to be cautious of any time MODOK does that diving attack, as it is by far the most annoying of his abilities, as it runs him all the way to the other side of the arena. We're looking pretty well at this stage. We'll unleash another repulsor array to take out those AIM soldiers. We can also make sure that we grab the different health replenishing orbs when and where needed. These attacks from MODOK do tend to be a little bit annoying because they prevent you from getting up close and delivering some of the final blows there. But all things considered, we're looking really well, and I'm really just trying to make sure that we can build up to our extreme attack and detonate that at our first opportunity, as that's going to be an excellent source of finalizing damage output. Rolling around those laser attacks that MODOK is throwing out, we find ourselves yet again being chased down by some lasers here. And at this stage, we will have our extreme attack online with just a couple of additional hits. Now, the caution I have with Iron Man's extreme ability is that it is highly directional, so you need to make sure that you space it and line it up about right. But the sweet spot is going to be right there in the center of that orb, and you see that MODOK goes down fairly easily as long as we have him correctly targeted into that area. But this is it. This is the last of the rifts in the Omega difficulty, and the last of the rifts that we have to look at in general. This is going to be the level 80 ultimate rift, where we face off against Magneto and his powerful allies, those being the new Brotherhood. Magneto, of course, is the main fighter that takes place across here, and he's pretty similar to what we've seen in other iterations of this fight. But Juggernaut is also present right off the bat here, so you'll need to be cautious and wary about him. And at this stage, we're really just looking to make sure that we can take both of them down and rid ourselves of the worries that they bring to us. However, these are not the only opponents which we will need to take down, as we also have Dr. Octopus and MODOK that spawn in the middle of this fight. And MODOK's a little more annoying in this area because it's such an enclosed space, but it is a little easier to track him down and take him out when he does run to the other side of the arena. So I suppose that's a positive trade-off. At this stage, I'm really just looking to get through it as quick as I can, so we go ahead and detonate our extreme attacks. That takes out Dr. Octopus. MODOK's not looking in such a great shape, but we don't quite take him down with those extreme attacks, so we've got to finish him off with a couple of synergies or heavy attacks there after the fact. Thanos is the last guy that spawns in after the previous mentioned bosses have been taken down, but he is very manageable, especially with the likes of the team that we have. So we'll just layer into him with a couple of our abilities, and that is going to be Curtains for Thanos and Curtains for the Rifts. Now there is a couple of really nice rewards that we get from clearing this out, including a nice Deadpool alternate costume. And if you're excited to see that, well, we're not going to be covering it in today's video, but we will eventually be doing a tier list and ranking of all alternate costumes in this game. So if you're excited to see that or want to be among the first to see it when it goes live, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, as that will be dropping before the end of the year. Thanks again for your time, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day.